The greedy Grinch stole Christmas presents from multiple infants. The Felon La Partillon wants to take even the blood out of African cycling federations to enrich himself. And the legendary Tadej Pogacar is determined to win in any stage race in which he participates, without the presence of his arch-nemesis, the Tede-tanned Danish fresh anchovy. 3 truths so simple, and they have caused the Volta Catalunya to have no interest whatsoever, as if we know in advance who is going to be the winner. As if now this World Tour competition were a simple Galician village race, led by a guy slaughtered by doping during his career as a professional cyclist. Cycling is becoming the new tennis, a sport also full of doping and hypocrisy, but where a small elite massacres the rest of the athletes, amassing more fortune and popularity, and getting the supposed fans of the sport angry when their favourite tennis player or cyclist doesn't win. This is David Le Partillon's plan, and we've seen it again with Pogi in Catalunya, where his participation doesn't cease to be a continuous message sent to the married anchovy, keeping the hype alive until the Jumbo rider puts him firmly back on the ground again in the Tour de France for the 3rd consecutive year, barring a miracle of the matching potion. A boring domination, but nevertheless is able to retain audiences around the world, because that's the secret of cycling. The more the monsters are exposed, the more the audience will have the freak show. Pogi arrived in Catalunya in sidereal shape, thinner than ever, and despite only 2 days of competition, the guy who'd slept soundly in the hyperbaric chambers of Kolobnev during the winter and had prepared with the much-improved Athletic Club Bilbao players for his best result ever at Sanremo, a race he would have won had it not been for the revenge of the grandson and son of dopers and the poor performance of some of his teammates. A guy who can slaughter Tom Pidcock on the Starato and win the sprint over Mats Pedersen is an opponent really far, far above the mediocre participants in this Volta Catalunya. Participants including Movistar's comic duo of Enric Mas and Tramadolito Quintana, as well as the tender, ever-young, fresh-faced Geraint Thomas of Ineos Grenadiers. Absolutely ridiculous opponents at this stage of the game for Pogi. It's as if he were Novak Djokovic in 2011, with placed in front of him old fading glories like Leighton Hewitt or the finished, washed-up Andy Roddick. They were the only sparring partners in the Masters 1000 before the arrivals of the Grand Slams of the season. In fact, on the first half-mountain day of this Volta Catalunya, Pogi couldn't get his first stage win of the week, which was what he really wanted. Again, his team was not up to the level of its star, and only Joao Almeida and Marc Soler were able to accompany the number 1 during the final kilometres. And so it was expected that a well-organised team could defeat the Slovenian monster. Of course, it wasn't any decadent Spanish team, but rather Sylvain Adams' Israel Premier Tech, who took advantage of Froome's injury to not go with one less rider in the roster, and they made a classic attack in the final kilometre for the German Nick Schultz to take his first World Tour victory at the tender age of 29, allowing him to enjoy a pitiful beer on the winner's podium. The typical poisonous drink used to swindle tourists visiting Gaudi's architectural masterpieces and the locker rooms of rapist footballers like Dani Alves. Pogi jumped when he could and left the rest of the peloton stranded in that uphill finish, but it still wasn't enough to catch Schultz, one of the few humans who has been able to win a stage in front of one of these aliens. Big kudos to the rider who sponsors a team representing a country at war. Now, the decadent Catalan race, which would never have this status were it not for the support of Omari Sports, proposed this year 2 consecutive high finishes on the 2nd and 3rd days. Stages that, with the participation of 1 of 2 Martian cyclists, well, many thought the Slovenian had already won. Now, as you know, the result was as expected, so basically watching those stages has been rather boring with no excitement. But, unlike the dictatorial Vingegaard of Visma, Pogi at least tries to make a show to entertain the viewer, as if he were the classic WWE wrestler facing beta male losers handpicked by Commissioner McMahon. It was seen on the first day with the finale at the Valta 2000 ski resort. the Vingegaard pair decided to add salt to the race with an attack with 150 kilometers to go, along with their particular mascot Demian Novak. An attacking duo on the flat that made no sense whatsoever, except to entertain the crowd. And later, thanks to Twitter, we learned what it was all about. So we hope that he will raise the level and dare to imitate Mr. Adalas Tom Dumoulin when he wears the pink jersey in the Giro in the Valley of the Dolomites. But Pogi wanted to keep having fun like Djokovic did, imitating his rivals, and so he decided to accelerate the pace on the descent of the Col de Coubet with 38 kilometers to go. An attack in which he spent more time looking at the cameras than at the road. But that only denotes immense superiority over the rest of the impotent cyclists. They have to allow the Slovenian show so that he doesn't get angry and humiliate them even more. The worst for this circus came on the final ascent of Volta 2000, and I feel sorry for the Lanterne Rouge colleague who pays every year huge amounts of money to Omari Sports so that he can have the image rights of the race, only for the plane that repeats the signal of the race to have to divert from the mountain pass because of bad weather. We couldn't see Pogi's attack. It was as if we were there 30 years ago. But this is Omari Sports, more concerned with protecting Marion Rousse from the old Soudal drunkard than with their own competitions. Fortunately, thanks to the organization's photographers, we were able to see how Almeida smashed the bunch for Pogi to make his final attack with 7 kilometers to go, and once again break a record for a climb, just as he had done days before on the Poggio di Sanremo. Of course, this time he didn't break records of doped riders from the 90s. He beat Remco Evenepoel, not at all a climber, but he did it in totally adverse weather conditions, which, by the way, are the best for his characteristics as a cyclist, something he has demonstrated on several occasions. You've already seen the data on other channels. The incredible power he's shown on that climb and the average speed, just a little lower than Vingegaard in Tirreno Adriatico 2 weeks ago. Now, as real data, I'll take Tramadolito Quintana, who, when he won on this same climb for the first time 11 years ago, he climbed slower than now, without Tramadol and at 34 years old, after a year without racing, and finishing almost 3 minutes behind Pogi. And yet, the UAE Emirates rider still allowed himself the luxury of joking at the finish line about how cold it was and that he had simply climbed at his own pace without trying too hard. Of course, for the next stage with a high finish in Port d'Aine, everyone expected the same as on the second day. Pogi, now obviously wearing the leader's jersey, did it all again. Remco Evenepoel's Gregario, Mikel Landa, or Jonas Vingegaard's Gregario, Sepp Kuss were just puppets for Pogi, and this time, with no air connection problems, the Slovenian again destroyed the others on a climb where the record holder was none other than Mr. Blancazo Chavito, a man who today dropped out of the bunch 12 kilometers from the finish line. Remco Evenepoel's Gregario tried to take his slice of the cake, but these monsters don't let the local riders triumph in their country. They have to prove that they and only they are the most outstanding riders on the planet. On a climb with gentle ramps where no big differences had ever been made, Pogi again easily broke the record with more than 1 minute and 25 seconds of advantage over the Colombian, despite having the air in his face for more than 7 kilometers, all alone. A stage so bland that the most fun was to be had watching Bahrain Victorious prepare for the Giro d'Italia, with the young Antonio Tiberi's surprising third place, alongside veteran monument winner Wout Poels. Now, if Tiberi is the funniest thing about a stage, how can we entertain you fans? Thank goodness we have members like these you see on screen, who support us financially, and discerning people who give us the super thanks, like these others. Otherwise, making videos like this, well, it just wouldn't be worth it.